Ausar Thompson is gone for the foreseeable future. Hopefully not too long, but he is gone as of right now. When it comes to being a part of the rotation, a part of training camp, what can happen? What is a bright spot you can try to find within Ausar Thompson being gone for this time? We'll talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. In today's episode, we'll be talking about some kind of bright spot, some kind of positivity that we can get out of Ausar Thompson not being around, or he is around. He's still practicing, but he can't be a part of training camp, can't do contact drills, and obviously can't be playing games for however long it is. What can we get out of that? What kind of positives can we try to look for within that out of a tough situation? Also, should the Pistons consider starting Jane Ivey and Malik Beasley together? And also, are there any surprises that Pistons fans should be looking for when it comes to potential players in the rotation that maybe we didn't consider would be a part of the rotation like throughout the entire offseason? Let's go ahead and get started with any kind of positives you can get out of this tough situation that involves Ausar Thompson. I am, by the way, if you keep seeing me look down at my phone, it's because I'm recording this during the 8th and 9th inning of this Tigers game. I usually don't watch baseball. I'm not a big baseball fan, but I like playing MLB The Show, and the Tigers are, like, obviously in the playoffs, and this is a big time. The city's going crazy, so I wanted to watch this close game, and I just saw this. I don't know who this is, but he just got a hit, and I think it was 3 runs came through. So 9th inning, hopefully some stuff happens. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started with Ausar Thompson. So obviously Ausar Thompson is gone for however long it is. We don't know exactly when he'll be back and when we should expect him to possibly return with this whole blood clot issue from last year. Don't need to dive too much into it. It's a very unfortunate situation. Obviously, everyone would rather Ausar be on the court, be fully healthy, and be all right. But during the meantime, while he's gone, is there any kind of positives that you can try to pull out of a tough situation? And one of the things I think you could look for, something that could come out of this, is an opportunity for someone like Ron Holland. Because at this moment, now we'll talk about the starting lineup a little later. JB spoke on it a little bit at practice today. But at the moment, without Ausar Thompson in the starting lineup, you're looking at a rotation. I would say, I'm just going to name off some names I believe probably going to be around the rotation. Might be a few differences, but I don't think they're going to have a 10-man rotation. You go with Cade, Ivey, Beasley, Tobias, Duran, Stu, Simone Fontecchio. And after that, without Ausar, are you looking at a Marcus Sasser? Are you looking at Ron Holland? Is it Paul Reed? Even Bobby Klintman? Is it one of those guys? With Ausar gone, you really, I think, only have like a surefire 7 names, 7, maybe 8 names that are a part of the rotation. And without Ausar around, obviously we're going to talk about it later. Is it possible they go small in the starting lineup to try to even out their wings between Tobias Harris and Simone Fontecchio? And who's going to soak up those minutes that are being left out by Ausar Thompson, even if it's just for a preseason game or 2? Even if it's for the entire preseason, if it's for a few regular season games, who knows? Within that time, that is going to open itself up an opportunity for Ron Holland to play some of those minutes and show, hey, he should be a part of the rotation. Should he be instantly a part of the rotation and eat up some of those minutes? Will the Pistons, one of the main things that I've heard as a counter argument to starting Ausar Thompson with Simone Fontecchio and Tobias all like in one lineup is, well, you're basically using up all your wings in the starting lineup. It's going to be hard to build a rotation around that. Well, if you believe, if Ron Holland plays well through preseason with this opportunity, if he showcases his talents and shows he's ready to play it right away, maybe that makes it a little easier when guys get back full strength and you can play a 4-man wing room and you can use a Ron Holland at the 3 or a 4 position. Not just for Ron Holland either, but also Bobi Klintman. I said on the episode of Locked On Pistons about, I'd probably say last month, where I think like a sneaky take could be that obviously Ron is the better prospect and much higher ceiling, but it could be a sneaky hot take that Bobi Klintman could be more ready to play instantly in the NBA right now than Ron Holland, due to the fact that he's a little bit older. He's played overseas. He played in professional leagues. He is more of a 3-and-D player. He's a plug-and-play kind of player. You're not asking him to do things with the ball in his hands. You're not asking him to do anything crazy. You're asking him to hit open threes and provide some defense. And is he capable of doing that? I mean, it sounds like that's the type of prospect he is, and he showcased that in Summer League. So this could be another opportunity also for Bobi Klintman to kind of show, hey, I was a second-round pick. I'm not the same level of prospect as maybe Ron Holland. I'm not the same level of prospect some of these other guys, but I am ready now to participate, to impact a rotation and be a role player, to soak up 10 to 15 minutes a night. I can do that. I can provide that type of spacing. I can provide that type of defense at those positions for this team. And I don't know if that opportunity would have been there for guys like I said, a Ron Holland or a Bobi Klintman. Did the Tigers just win? Did they just win? No, they didn't just win. Sorry, everybody. But yeah, I don't know if this opportunity would have presented itself if Ausar was available to play in training camp and was available at the beginning of regular season. Now, maybe he is available by the regular season, but as of right now, he is out. So this time should be used by guys like Ron Holland, like guys like Bobi Klintman, to take advantage of this moment and try to take advantage of the extra reps, the extra minutes that they'll be getting in preseason to show that, hey, we're ready to play. And even when Ausar gets back, now you can feel like you have an even deeper team and you have even more options if you're a JB Bickerstaff, even more combinations that you can do on the floor with your lineup construction. So, look, the Ausar Thompson news is not positive news. It's not good. No one likes this. No one likes having to see Ausar sit out and him having to go through all this. Everyone would obviously rather Ausar be healthy and fully available and able to play basketball. So it's a very, very tough situation that no one wants to be in. But with that situation being reality, let's try to pull some kind of positives that could come from it. And it could be this. It could be that Ron Holland and Bobi Klintman use this time to showcase that they are available and ready to contribute quicker than maybe a lot of people expected. And we'll get to find that out this week in just a few short days, in like 3 to 4 days at the open practice. Well, I'm sure they'll scrimmage a little bit. And also the open practice, by the way, I believe, actually, I don't have the exact time for it right now. I think, actually, yes, I do. I got the schedule right here. The open practice is at 12:30. I believe it's at Wayne State Fieldhouse. I believe if the schedule is correct. Either way, it's at 12:30 on Saturday, that is. And then Sunday, they have their first preseason game. So we'll find out soon enough whether those guys are ready and showcase that they are available to soak up some of those minutes if Ausar is out for an extended period of time. But let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at @KukaHill. Is there anything else that you could try to pull out of this tough situation with Ausar Thompson to start this season off? Let me know again in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at @KukaHill. When we come back, should the Pistons consider starting Jaden Ivey and not one or the two and Malik Beasley to start this season? Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. I've told you guys this many a times. A few years ago, when betting became legal in Michigan, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know anything about it. I tried out FanDuel, and I have not turned back since. It's super easy to use, super self-explanatory, and most importantly, super fun to use. It's 2024. It's been multiple years, and I still use it almost every single week. It's extremely fun to use, maybe a little too much fun to use. But again, you can get started today with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet with FanDuel. Again, that's FanDuel.com, America's #1 Sportsbook. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So today there were some clips that were coming out from the Pistons practice. This is day 2. This was day 2 of their training camp. And some of the clips that came out, there's a lot of speculation going on amongst people who obviously, if you watch the clips, a lot of times what happens is fans will try to figure out, okay, who's the starters? Who's coming off the bench? Who's playing with who? What's the lineups looking like? And there were some people that watched this clip posted by the Detroit Pistons and noticed that, or felt like, not noticed, let's say it was speculated that the blue people in the blue jerseys were basically the starters. And the players that were in the blue jerseys were Jaden Ivey, Malik Beasley, Tobias, Jalen Duren, and Cade Cunningham. Now, could that actually be what the starting lineup is? I want to say this right out the gate. I would not read too heavily into like what jerseys guys are wearing at practice, because it is just practice. And there could be many reasons for, why certain players wearing this color, that color, whatever. I will say also, while people who did not play, most people obviously did not play in the NBA, to act like there is nothing to read into that. I feel like if you played sports at any level, high school, college, like that, there is something to read into that. Like it's not just nothing, but I wouldn't take it too crazy to where this is definitely it. My takeaway initially, and then we'll get into whether they should start Jaden Ivey and Malik Beasley. My initial takeaway was that, he's in a bit of a rundown. Did he get safe? Is he safe? No, they got him at second base. Oh, man. Anyways, I would say my initial takeaway was that, Ausar Thompson's gone, and we got to try to balance out the spacing, or we got to try to balance out these wings, and we're going to play Jaden Ivey and Malik Beasley together, but if Ausar Thompson was healthy, he would be in one of their places. Whether it's Ivy or whether it's Beasley, he'd be in one of their places. That was my immediate takeaway. But then obviously the next thing I thought about was like, okay, would they actually consider starting this 5 while Ausar Thompson's gone? And to, bring some more thought process, to extend the thought process, I should say, with that, JP was asked about, has he decided to start in lineup? And his quote was today, quote, "Night by night, the rotations could change. We could do some hockey subs just to get groups out on the floor. Those type of things. We'll make a decision once we have all the data." He also went on to say that they're going to use all 5 games of the preseason to figure out what their starting lineup is going to be. So I'm sure you're going to see a ton of variety of different lineups this offseason, or not offseason, this preseason, before they really settle in on one starting lineup. So could I see this starting lineup being one of the lineups that they end up testing out? 100%. I definitely could. And there's obvious positives to this lineup, but there's also obvious negatives. I think very glaring negatives to this lineup, but there are positives to this type of lineup being used. If they were to go this lineup, obviously you're going smaller if you were to go with something like this. And not only are you being a little bit smaller, obviously, I'm one of those people that believe that after the way Simone Fontecchio played last year, he should be paired with Cade Cunningham at all times. Doesn't need to share all 48 or however many minutes he plays a night, 30 minutes, whatever. He doesn't need to play every single minute of that with Cade, but he should be in a lot of lineups and a lot of his minutes with Cade. I feel like those guys should be paired together. And I think, at least in my opinion, he should be close to an automatic starter because of the spacing he brings at his position with his size, and what we saw from him last year. But those are the 2 immediate negatives I have with that. Obviously, I think the defense is basically non-existent if you go that small with those 2 guys starting. So you're basically, I feel like you're basically punting on that side of the floor. However, the big positives on that is that you are really going full-on offense with a ton of spacing, and you are really, I think if you were to go with that lineup, you're really looking to utilize Jalen Duren's playmaking, his ball handling, and his DHO ability in the half court with this lineup. I think that would be a really featured set, a really featured action in the half court if you were to go with this lineup, with the amount of spacing that you would have with Beasley coming off DHOs, with Tobias spacing the floor, with K coming off DHOs, with Jaden Ivey coming off DHOs going downhill. Like, I think that would be a heavy use, a heavy action used in the half court with this type of lineup. And also for both Jaden Ivey and K Cunningham, you are giving them the utmost spacing possible. You are playing them with Malik Beasley, Tobias Harris, and you have your lob threat, your pick and roll guy in Jalen Duren. And they are, and Jaden, when he has the ball, Cade will space for him. And when Cade has the ball, Jaden will space the best he can for Cade. So you're really giving them the most spacing possible if they're going to share the court together. That is probably one of the best. You could probably sub Simone in, I feel like, for Malik Beasley. I think that maybe would be better. But Beasley probably has a little bit more ball handling to his game. You can have him not create too much, but you can probably trust him a little bit more with the ball in his hands coming downhill off DHOs and off pick and rolls. But either way, you're going full on offense with that lineup, and you have the utmost type of spacing. You should get a lot of threes up. You should get a lot of looks at the rim up. And the hope, I'd assume with the lineup like that would be that you're going to be so good offensively that the other team is getting the ball out the basket and having to go against your set defense a lot more than they would against another lineup. So it should help your defense somewhat. I don't know if I necessarily would buy that, because I think the half-court defense would be a struggle quite a bit, which is why I find it hard to believe that this would be a starting lineup that they would go with, just because I really do think the defense is almost impossible with this lineup. But to move on past just starting Ivey and Beasley, I do think it's possible, and it would be because of offensive reasons. It would be really fun to see offensively with that lineup, but just defensively, I just can't see how they would string enough stops to make it worth it. But to move on past that, just those two, JB, I just mentioned on the last episode how you won't see JB use 5 out, 5 in lineups. I do want to clarify, I was mentioning more so with regular season. Obviously, with preseason, you'll use lineups to test out, what lineup you want. Like, you're going to see more experimenting happen during the preseason. So you'll see some of that in the preseason, but I do not think that you should take this quote as him saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to do it in the regular season. We're going to play 10 guys." That's not what he said. I don't think that's what anyone's plan is. It's just during the preseason you can experiment a little bit more. A lineup that I'm really looking forward to seeing with the Ausar out right now, and with JB saying they're going to experiment with multiple lineups during preseason to figure out what starting lineup they want to go with. The lineup that I'm really interested in seeing, I'm hoping that we get to see, is a lineup like K Cunningham, Malik Beasley, Simone Fontecchio, Tobias Harris, and Jalen Duren. That lineup right there is you want to talk about spacing. You want to talk about offensive. That should be the Pistons' peak offense right there. That should provide the most offense any lineup could provide for the Pistons. Jalen Duren, trusting him to ball handle and create for himself in the half court. You got that at the 5 position. You got shooting at the 4, 3, and 2 position. You got a dynamic ball handler in Cade, obviously, at the 1 position with spacing around him and his lob threat. You got another scoring option with Tobias Harris. Veterans at each position. I think that right there is probably their best offensive lineup. So I'd really hope that we get to see that at some point during preseason. Now, if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. I assume it probably wouldn't work defensively. I think that would be where the concern's at, even though you have more size to switch than you would with like an Ivey and Beasley lineup. You have more size with Simone and Tobias on the floor, with Cade, Beasley, and Duren. I think that would probably be more of the concerns at defensively. I don't see how it wouldn't work offensively, but maybe it doesn't. But I think that 100% would be number 1 lineup that I want to see during preseason in a few days. And if Ausar is out for the regular season, at least to start the regular season, I think that starting lineup could be, or that lineup could be your starting lineup. And I think it could provide really good results, especially offensively. So let me know in the comment section down below. Do you guys think that it's possible to start Jaden Ivey and Malik Beasley together? And what are some lineups that you are really looking forward to seeing JB Bickerstaff try out during the preseason when he can experiment a little bit more and just try things out? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, are there any surprises that could happen throughout preseason when it comes to players cracking the rotation that maybe we did not think that they would before preseason started? I'm a procrastinator. I wait to the last second with literally everything. It often screws me over, especially when it comes to buying tickets for your favorite event out there. But with Game Time, it absolutely saves me because Game Time has last-minute deals all the way up again to the last minute of the event, and sometimes even after the event has already started. So for someone like myself who waits to the last second to get everything, if there's a new MCU movie coming out, if there's a concert I'm trying to go to, if there's a game I'm trying to go to, I wait to the last second, I go to Game Time, I get a great deal on whatever tickets I want almost every single time. Also, within the app, you can see views of your seat before purchasing. So no longer you get a ticket, you show up, the seat sucks, and you're like, oh, shouldn't have gotten these tickets. No, with Game Time, you can see the view of your seat right within the app, so you know if that ticket is the best for you. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I don't want to take too long with this segment, but some comments today about Paul Reed actually sparked this segment here. We got some really interesting comments from Ron Holland saying the player that shocked him the most and impressed him the most from the first day of practice was Paul Reed. Said he can hoop. Didn't know he could hoop like that for real. Apparently he was impressed from the first day of practice. New Detroit Pistons beat writer Cody Davis wrote an article talking about Paul Reed will have a bigger impact with the Detroit Pistons than he did with the Philadelphia 76ers. So hearing that kind of sparked this conversation because I don't see how he could really be a part of the rotation with Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart already here. So now it got me thinking, okay, well, what surprises could be happening to the rotation that I haven't seen coming, that maybe fans haven't seen coming? So obviously we'll start with Paul Reed. I guess that is a surprise that people should consider. Because people are speaking really highly of him, people spoke really highly of him during the offseason, you want me to be honest. And he is a fine basketball player. However, the Pistons have a bit of a logjam at the 5 position with Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren. Could he be a surprise where he's actually the backup 5 and Isaiah Stewart is playing the 4 position again? I don't see that happening. Isaiah Stewart spoke really glowingly of his excitement to finally get to play the 5 position more often, he said. He feels like he's going to play the 5 a lot more this year. So I wouldn't assume that it would just be tough for me to see Paul Reed in the rotation unless one of Isaiah Stewart or Jalen Duren, knock on wood, get hurt. Or I guess I should knock on wood with this too, don't play well enough to maintain in the rotation. But again, that's stuff I don't see happening. But I think he would be number 1 on the surprisers to make the rotation for the Pistons this upcoming year, and the Tigers just won. What a ball game for the Tigers, man. They went down 2-1, saw everyone freaking out. I thought it was not looking too good for them. And then I believe, what was it, the bottom of the 8th or the top of the 8th? They really turned on the Jets. That dude, what's the left-hander's name? Oh, Josh Hader. He bugs the living hell out of me in MLB The Show. I can never hit him, but the Tigers had no problem hitting him in this 8th inning. So congrats to the Tigers. I believe in baseball, that's it. They move on to the next round, right? So congratulations to the Tigers. Congratulations to Tigers fans, man. The city is popping right now for Tigers. The city is absolutely popping. So shout out to the Tigers. But number 2 on the surprise list for the rotation, let's get back to the Pistons, would be Marcus Sasser for me. Because I have not thought that Marcus Sasser really had much of a chance of being in the rotation, to be honest, because you have a Malik Beasley, you have a Tim Hardaway. Oh, Tim Hardaway Jr. was the guy. I knew I was forgetting somebody earlier when I said a guaranteed 7 to be in the rotation. I was forgetting somebody. It was THJ. So if you watched long enough into the podcast, do not comment down below, well, you forgot THJ. Don't tweet at me and say you forgot THJ. If you just listened all the way through, you'd realize I caught myself. So THJ was the guy I was forgetting earlier. That's 8 guys. But again, with Malik Beasley, with THJ, with Cade, with Jay and Ivy, that just feels like a logjam at the guard positions to where I have not been able to see a real position for a Marcus Sasser in this rotation. But what if the Pistons view Marcus Sasser as the backup point guard? What if that's what they view? And then they play Ivy at the starting 2 guard position, and maybe they play a Marcus Sasser, Malik Beasley, THJ, Isaiah Stewart bench lineup with maybe, let's say, I'd assume maybe Ausar coming off the bench with them, whatever wing you want to plug in there with it. That would be a 10-man rotation, though, and I don't think they would go 10 deep. But I guess it's certainly possible. Marcus Sasser spoke about at Media Day. He continued to talk about how he's been trying to become a better point guard, how he's been trying to develop as a point guard. And we saw him play point guard at Summer League. We've heard nonstop talk about him trying to become a better point guard all season. So maybe that's why. Maybe it's because they view him as the backup point guard. So maybe he is the number one surprise to crack the rotation during the preseason and be a part of the rotation during the regular season. Well, I just haven't been able to see a real spot for him. Maybe that does happen. Maybe they go 10 deep and create room for him. So I think I have him number 2 for my rotation surprises. And number 3, I'm going to have a tie between Ron Holland and Bobi Klintman, because I just have not seen much of a way to play either of these guys when you go through a rotation with the vets that they added at the positions that they play. I just have not been able to see how they could really crack the rotation because of that. With Tobias, maybe even THJ soaking up some of those 3 minutes. I think I said Tobias, THJ, Simone Fontecchio, Ausar Thompson, even Stu soaking up some of those minutes at the 4 potentially. I just haven't been able to see a way they could crack the rotation. But with Ausar out for however long he is, like we mentioned in the first segment, this is going to create a possibility, an opening, an opportunity for one of those guys to maybe play well enough to say, hey, with this increased opportunity, with these increased reps, we showed that we are more ready to contribute than people maybe thought right off the bat to start this season. So those are the 3 guys I think, or it's 4, but we have a tie for 3rd. Those are the 3 surprises I think you could see with the rotation coming in the regular or coming through the preseason, heading into the regular season. If I had to, it's in order of who I would be most surprised about. I'd be most surprised by Paul Reed making the rotation somehow consistently. I'd then be most surprised by Sasser cracking it, and I'd be least surprised, but still somewhat surprised by Ron Holland or Bobi Klintman cracking the rotation. So let me know in the comment section down below, do you agree with any of those surprises, or do you already think that one of those guys are going to be in the rotation? And it won't be a surprise at all. So let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter how you guys feel about this. Preseason, just 4 days away from the first preseason game. We are 3 days away from an open practice where I'm sure they'll probably do an open scrimmage and play against each other, at least I'd assume. Also, I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I appreciate all of you guys. Go Tigers. This is great for the city. I'm happy about it. I'm happy for all the Tigers fans out there. It got me watching playoff baseball. So this was super dope. Go Tigers. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Until next time, peace out.